My name is Jeff Cream. I moved to New Hampshire in 1992 with my wife and ended up having 2 kids here who are now New Hampshire natives and pretty much almost grown at this point. I live in Nashua, moved here originally from New York State back in 92. I'm the current research director for the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance. And today we're going to be hearing from Christopher Gronski. He's been living in New Hampshire since 1987, so one of the few people here who's been here longer than me. He has a great concern for American freedom. Like a lot of us here, he actually takes the New Hampshire state motto, live free or die, very seriously. He's been studying federal and state jurisdiction laws for over 20 years, and he's worked to get laws passed in New Hampshire to try to improve state sovereignty and sovereign citizens, right? Does that pretty much wrap it up?
Well, and sovereign citizens, yeah.
Okay.
Sovereignty is important for the state.
So, all right. So without further ado, I'll let you get started.
Well, thanks so much. I appreciate that. Well, I have more information than I think we're going to cover today. And really, I have a class that on this same subject coming up March 4th. And it's an all-day class. It's online. I have information on that if you want. But really, today I just wanted to somewhat do an introductory type of talk on the subject of state versus federal citizen. And hopefully my presentation will work great here. Yeah, sure it will. There we go. Okay. As it says here, Jefferson said that if a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. It's really not optional for a person to be free and really float along or allow somebody else to help them remain free or be free. It requires a certain amount of time in our pursuit of happiness to learn about who we are, what it is to be free. I serve clients. I've been serving people on helping people stay out of federal jurisdiction, I think for about 16 years that way. I myself been doing this since 1994. And I've seen a lot. I was state coordinator for We the People, Bob Schultz's organization years ago when they were doing the Truth and Taxation hearing. You know, I met a lot of IRS agents and people associated with the tax liberty movement. And I'm not been on the same page as they are with respect to what they believed. And that was, they believed the idea that, you know, most Americans shouldn't file and pay income taxes. It's just unjust and all that. And they really didn't know or understand why it is the federal government does what it does and how they do that and how it's okay with respect to how they're conducting themselves. But when you understand the difference between the state and federal citizen, you'll see that it makes sense that way. This is one of my favorite quotes that I want to read to you, which is so, it lives in my heart so much, and maybe it will you as well. It says, this is by Frederick Douglass. It says, "Let me give you a word on the philosophy of reform. The whole history of the progress of human liberty shows that all concessions yet made to her august claims have been born of earnest struggle. The conflict has been exciting, agitating, all-absorbing, and for the time being putting all other tumults to silence. It must do this or it does nothing. If there's no struggle, there's no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet depreciate agitation are men who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the uproar of its waters. This struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, or it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. Find out just what people will submit to, and you will find the exact amount of injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them, and these will continue until they're resisted with either words or blows or with both. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress." When I read that, I said my oppression level is way too high, you know. So, you know, you wanted to understand that. And a lot of times, especially with the nature of the subject matter of dealing with IRS or dealing with the difference between state and federal citizen, is a lot of people believe or want to have confidence in their understanding of the tax code or some statutes or some of these things is that way. What I've always said to my clients is it's more important for you to understand principles of liberty and freedom and understand who you are and by what authority governments have. Then from that place, you'll be much better equipped to be able to determine whether something is going to violate you or not. One of the most, if you've never read the Declaration of Independence, then I highly recommend that you look it over. I personally believe more than just a historical document. I believe the Declaration of Independence is a guide. The principles that are in that document are profound. Now, I put the document into three parts: the opening, their redress of grievance, and the close. That's pretty much it. And I'm going to cover some of the opening and the close, okay? Because these words are profound. They're profound. You'd swear they could have been written today with as urgent as things are today for liberty and freedom. Now, what's fun about the Liberty Forum, or at least some of the sentiment that's going on in the country or in New Hampshire, is there's a conversation about seceding from the Union and all that. And part of that came out of, I know for me, was watching that video on Brexit. I don't know if you've seen it on YouTube. There was a video called Brexit, and they do a wonderful job of explaining why Great Britain should come out of the European Union. We watched it. It was excellent. And so when I watched it, I went on Facebook and said, so when is New Hampshire getting their vote to pull out of the Union, you know? And then people have all kinds of emotion about what's the impact of that. And then we go right back to the South of like, oh yeah, we're going to have a war, and all of that energy about that. And that because people don't understand what we have here. And I just want to show a little bit about that. And this is profound. And these are words we've seen all the time, but it's so great. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect of the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. What a great statement. I mean, I think the Libertarian Party, was born out of this. Well, I think the sentiment of what's going on politically in the country was born out of this. People are like sick and tired of their political associations that aren't working for them, not on multiple levels, not only from a system, but as well as the people involved. So this describes our right to associate and disassociate with anyone that we want. This is a divorce. And the beauty of this kind of a statement is this is peace. This is nonviolent. It says, like, look, our association with each other is done. It's not, there's not this back and forth, we're pretty much done, and we're going to separate. Now, in this situation, they're talking about their political bans, okay? And so I love all of the way they're describing it. I mean, this is love, in my opinion. I love this word here. Oh, I have a high tech here. There you go. Dissolve. I mean, how about that? Dissolve. It's all done, So then it goes on. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. This is mankind. That they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That among these certain rights, so this isn't all of them, among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, we've seen these words here, but they're just stating this is a reality that they're sharing, okay? Then they go on. Then it goes on that to secure these rights, here's this word that means, this is the reason, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. This is the only purpose of government. Let me say this. The only purpose of just government is this. This has to be known and understood not only by the people who are participating in a community, but it has to be understood by those who are voted in as representatives. I don't use the term leaders with representatives. That's a misnomer, okay? So you've got to stop calling them what they're not. But so here it is. This is plain and simple. So it does not take any type of education to run for office, okay? It takes no brains at all. None. as we can tell. Okay, so but the idea is any issue out there is going to either secure rights or it's going to expand the power of government. There's no other issue. There can be a little bit of everything in there, but the bottom line is it's either going to secure rights or violate you on some level. And so this makes it very simple. It says that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is, here's another right, it's the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute new government, laying its foundations on such, what? Principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. That's your right. This is a right among life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, a right to alter and abolish your form of government. Now then it goes on. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. Okay, we get that. Okay, and it says, and accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable. That's like TSA. Okay, yeah, it's a pain in the butt to go through that, but look what the oppression level is like. I'm willing to do this, then I'm willing to do that, then I'm more and more and more. And that's what's happened. While they're sufferable, then to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. We don't want to be accustomed to forms that violate us. And it's a toehold. Every tax a politician supports starts off small. Every one of them. They never say, and we want, this like, we want minimum wage $15. I say, let's make it $75. Oh, no, why not? Oh, no, because we can't swallow. We start off with a little bit of poison. We'll work it up to 75. Don't you worry. But see, this is in the Declaration of Independence because it's necessary. This is still relevant, you see. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object, it evidences a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. Here's another one. It is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former system of government. I mean, they're just saying it. And I'll tell you right now, our present form of politics is dreadful. I mean, it's, there's been changes, but I'll tell you, the people, a lot of people, at least the people I associate with, are really tired of the way things are. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries. You could put in here the Congress. Now, most of my energy is focused on the federal, in the sense of the tyranny of that. In my humble opinion, I think it could be abolished completely, because I have ideas of the states taking care of themselves better than having a big fat middleman. Honestly, I can't think of one thing. They do well that the states can't. I remember one time they shut down, like they do every once in a while, where they don't balance the budget and they close all the parks. That's another way of like, yeah, we're closing the parks. Yeah, right. And so those states down there, the Grand Canyons, they said, they're still open. That would have told me, get out. Don't come back. We can keep them open. Then it says, and establish an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let the facts be submitted to a candid world. What a beautiful document. That's the whole opening. We just read the whole opening. And then they go into the redresses. And it's worth it to read them. And here's what I would do. I think we should adopt a bill to embrace all the redresses that are in the Declaration of Independence and just swap them out. We'll take all those, we'll let the states do whatever they're complaining about, and then we'll kick out everything else there. We'll be freer if we adopt that than not, But anyway, but the idea is if you read them, you'll say, holy smokes, we are in desperate need. Our founders would have never allowed it to be that bad. Then it goes on, and then afterwards it says, in every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Now, we're talking about King George. This could be talking about the Congress. It could be talking about any president. It's the same issue. There's no different. People aren't different. Tyranny's not different. It's got nothing to do with our technology. It has everything to do with people. Nor have we been wanting in our intentions by our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislator to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. That's what's happening. I'm going to show that to you by the federal government. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here, why they came to America. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They, too, have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. Then it says, we therefore, I love this, we therefore, the representatives of these United States of America in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world, that's God, not the President, okay, for the rectitude of our intentions. Now look at this. They're accountable to God for what they do in the name and by the authority, oh wait, by the authority, I pushed the wrong button. By the authority of the good people of these colonies. You see, every rep should recognize that the authority of what they do is coming from the people. It's not given to them. They're delegates. Now, like for example, if you look at the word constituent, it's a transfer of power and delegated to the rep. They don't have some power that isn't delegated. The power remains in the people. So here he's recognizing, says, and of these colonies solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be what? Free and independent states. Here they were colonies with Great Britain. Now they're what? Free and independent states. That they're absolved from all allegiance to the British crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain, so here's the king and here's the parliament, Great Britain, is and ought to be totally dissolved, gone. I remember some lawyers talking on the radio one time. They said, well, you know, the Declaration of Independence, it was illegal. It's like, I was thinking, wow, went to school, got a degree. What a moron. This was to save lives. Here's what we're all done. Well, of course, what did the king say? Go pound sand, right? So then, and then as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may have right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortune, and our sacred honor. This kind of people I'm always looking for. But the thing I want you to see is this is what was created. This still is the way it is. There are people who think by the creation of the Constitution and the formation of the federal government that they gave this up. I'm sorry, that is false. These states are free and independent states still. The thing is, in view of this, they delegate power. Delegated power is not given up power. It's delegated. If you were running a company or something in which you're delegating work, it's still your business. It's still your work. You still have to be accountable to get it done, even if you're having someone else do it. It's your responsibility. Delegation is that way. So these states were free and independent. So when a lot of people don't realize that the word state, you know, we'll define it this way as country. You know, Great Britain, France, Iran, New Hampshire, Italy, New York, Texas, Russia, California, Maine are all states. They all have, I don't know about the foreign states, but a state could have a legislature. Like all the states in America have their own legislature, their own judiciary, their own executive branch. They all have state departments in which they interact with other states. Okay? This is the way it is. All the states in America are also members of the Hague Convention. The other countries recognize these states as separate entities. This federal government is not superior to the states. Every amendment to the Constitution is ratified by the states. It's by their permission. The trouble is when they abolished, well, they didn't abolish senators being appointed by the states. They did the 17th Amendment, making senators elected by the people, which was a degradation and a bad check and balance. Because imagine if everything the Senate did was by the permission of the legislatures of all the states. That would change everything. Foreign policy would change. Also, everything that the president does, every cabinet member would be checked by the legislature of the states. It would change the Congress. So I don't know how the 17th Amendment was ratified. Can you imagine the legislature saying, yeah, we don't want to have anything to do with that Congress, do we? And let's give up that power. I don't think so. I challenge that the 17th Amendment was never ratified by the states. So here's the federal government's limitation, is Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. To exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 square miles as may by secession of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of the government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be, for erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. This is what the federal government has jurisdiction over, and nothing else. Some subject matter jurisdiction, but the subject matter is even within their jurisdiction. Look, when the federal government took over education of schools, it dumbed down the people. They aren't teaching people about rights and freedom. When the federal government, by way of took over the law schools, lawyers don't understand securing rights. They understand civil rights and whatever that is. But they don't understand, they're not taught principles of liberty and freedom. The ones that would know this would have to have taken it on their own, because the schools don't have that in their agendas. At least that's the way we see as things go. And you know the 9th and 10th Amendments retain this power to the states and to the people. This says the enumeration of certain rights in the Constitution shall not be construed to deny to the people, to deny or disparage others retained by the people. And the 10th Amendment, powers not delegated, I hit the wrong button again. The powers not delegated to the United States, that's the federal government, by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. That's a powerful check and a balance. Now, Dan Itza right now had drafted up a bill that they've had before. You know, the one where they're talking about New Hampshire sovereignty, right? It's a big, long bill. It's all that stuff. My problem with the bill is, as they all are, is they're a bit masturbatory in nature. It feels good for the politicians that all vote for it. Matter of fact, they'll probably all vote for it, and it'll produce nothing for us. They'll feel good. Hey, New Hampshire's sovereign. Federal government, please give us more money. We want more money. We can't even live without your money. Please give us more money. Federal government, it's free money. Federal government's free money. That's how politicians think. Unless the bill says, and therefore, if the federal government encroaches on the freedoms of the people of New Hampshire, it will be required by the governor to take action against any federal agent that's going to function. That's what I want. That's the wording I want in it, because nothing's going to change unless it does. So here's the United States of Europe, and here's the United States of America. How many people think this is a country? Anybody think Europe's a country? This is how stupid Americans are. God bless America, I support the troops. I mean, they do not understand what they have. Anybody who thinks this is a country do not understand what they have. These are countries. We read it in the Declaration. They have full power to levy war, conclude peace contract alliances. If every one of these states had their own state militia or guard or committees of safety, if every county had a few of their people that made up their state guard, what kind of a force do you think that would be? That would be awesome. And they would work together how they work together. But these states, does Germany have its own military? Of course. All these states have their own tiny little militaries. We're so stupid. And when we make like the federal government is the head of our country, this is what we're pretending. This is ridiculous. And this is falling apart. I can only hope that we could have such luck. I mean, my word, and the thing about it is, why is this falling apart? Bankers suck. I mean, this social system is not working. I mean, and you can know the productive states are saying, oh, we can't take it anymore, much less their central government is bringing in, and there's an invasion in their country. No, this is a collective of states. This is the United States of Europe. No one is going to think Germany is Italy. Everyone's pretty clear these are separate countries, right? Okay. Why don't we consider that these are separate countries? They are. When the South wanted to walk out for whatever reason, right or wrong, they formed the Confederate States of America. They had their own president. If you saw in the Declaration of Independence that by consent they came together to form a union against a common enemy, now they're locked in and can't get out by vote? Really? That's what free people do. Now you're bound. Well, so that's what I wrote on Facebook was, well, Great Britain's leaving the European Union. When we're going to bomb them? When are we going to invade Great Britain to make them come back to the Union? Because, you know, I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United. I mean, that whole federalist crap. And then we see all these memes on there, vote, like this if you think that, what? That people have to stand up and do the, for the national anthem? Really? We're going to just force it. Lose the heart behind whatever love we have for this experiment that has failed. Why? Because this state is irresponsible, this state's irresponsible, this state's irresponsible, and let the market bear. If this state has funky immigration policies, let the people flee or go or whatever they want to do. And they do. So this is clear to me. These are states. These are separate countries. They really are. But let's look, and the federal government knows this. So, Article 4, Section 2 of the Constitution says, this is in 1787. The citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens of the several states. Okay? Before, right here, this isn't the creation of the state citizen. All these states were separate countries. And therefore, they had, I'm going to show you this, they had citizens of their own. And so therefore, what this was about was that the federal government could not favor one citizen of one state over a citizen of another. This was to make it uniform that if the federal government was going to offer a privilege, it was going to be the same for everybody, or if they were going to do some protection or immunity, it was going to be for everyone. Obviously, like the military is for everyone, the post office is for everyone. They can't favor somebody else. Those taxes are the same based upon, the Constitution. This is the way it is. But this reference, just what I want to say is that the citizens of each state and the citizens of the several states, that's what I want you to get. This is a state citizen, as it says here. But later, the 13th Amendment, I want you to watch this pronoun. And I go into more detail with this in my class. But it says here, this is in 1865. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to what? This pronoun is their jurisdiction, the states. So it says slavery is legal, but they have to be duly convicted of a crime, okay? So that's what people in prison are, unjustly many, but people in prison who have been duly processed, they're slaves, and they can be caused to work against their will, okay? Outside of that, it's illegal. So, but what I want you to notice is that this term United States and subject to their jurisdiction. Then you come along here, well, let me just back and show you the Hooven case in 1945. The Supreme Court defined the term United States. It says here, it may merely be the name of a sovereign occupying the position analogous of that of other sovereigns in the family of nations. This is somewhat geographical. It may designate the territory of which the sovereignty of the United States extends, or it may be the collective name of the states which are united by and under the Constitution. So here are the states, here's the federal government definition too, and this is somewhat geographical, talking about the term United States. So when you're asked, are you a United States citizen, You do not know what they mean by that. You must ask them, which definition are you relying upon so that I can answer you? If it's this one, that's a federal citizen. If it's this one, that's a citizen of one of the states. I've asked the State Department in New Hampshire. They told me I could define the term. They didn't have it. In the Department of Transportation, they didn't have a definition. Their attorneys were looking back into the 1800s. They didn't have one. They said, we can't give you the driver's license unless you answer the question yes. And I said, that's fine. I just wanted to define the term. So I put my documents in. I do this again, man. So I defined it by the third definition of the states. That way I can answer the question, yes, I'm a state citizen, therefore I'm a United States citizen. Now, before the 14th Amendment, which is here, there was no federal citizen. There was only state citizens. So here it is. This is 1868, after the Civil War. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. So there's two things here, the citizens of the United States and the state in which they reside. No state, now this is a regulation on the states. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the rights of the It says privileges or immunities of the citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within what? Its jurisdiction the equal protections of law. This its is referring to this United States. This is the federal government. The Congress creates this federal citizen by statute. This is the 14th Amendment. Now, I know the State Department, because I do passport work for people, in a passport process, we change this, or at least clarify it, because it's under penalty of perjury. And all of the clients that I've done passport process with and obtained passports, we have an explanatory statement that goes into a great deal on this. But the idea is that this, when you understand what happened, the federal government didn't have the authority to go into the South and to tell them what kind of citizens they could have. It wasn't delegated power that the federal government had. Now, in the name of the morality of the slave issue, which was for the South and the North, was an economic issue, because Abraham Lincoln he didn't care whether the slaves were freed or not. His commitment, as he says, was to keep the Union together. And he said, if that's keeping slavery, we'll keep the Union together, we'll do that. If it's freeing the slaves, we'll keep the Union together, we'll do that. So he wasn't this high ideals. And so I think that some of the consequence of the South was because they didn't have the high road with respect to that issue. But the conversation about the power of states' rights was profound. So there's other things that states have that we recognize the power of the state to do. For example, is prostitution illegal? Prostitution is not illegal in Nevada. It's illegal in other states, separate jurisdiction. Federally, that would be in their jurisdiction. They would probably have prostitution's illegal, except in Washington, D.C., where it's practiced on a regular basis in multiple ways, all sorts of ways. But nonetheless, it's just a separate jurisdiction. But look at this. This is how the federal government does what it does and violates people. This is what people are invited into, is this 14th Amendment. And how do we know that? Notice that they talk down here about these citizens being promised privileges and immunities. These citizens, now it tells the state, you're not going to deprive these people of life, liberty, or property. Well, wait, why do they have to write this without due process of law? Why? Because this citizen is not guaranteed this Fifth Amendment, because this is already law. You see, the beautiful thing, what they should have never done, the federal government should have never created their own citizen. They should have just said, blacks are people, the end of the story, count them up, they're just the same as everyone else, like the rest of the world did when they abolished slavery. They didn't create a separate class of citizen. That would have been more of the same, which is exactly what the history shows, is that just because they freed the slaves, that second-class federal citizen still wasn't on the same level as everybody else. And this is why we're still having these problems, is because this is still a separation. The difference is now everybody's in that same class, second-class citizen. And so here you have, like the Fifth Amendment says, nor to be deprived life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Why would and listen, anything a politician writes in a law is not there by accident. They think about it, they write it, and they vote on it, word by word. They'll pull words, they'll add words. That's the way it works. Why was this in here? Was because, you know what? If the Fifth Amendment was going to guarantee them their rights, they wouldn't have had to have this in here. But they're telling the state, you're not going to deprive our citizens subject to the jurisdiction thereof. You're not going to violate them and their due process, because these are privileges and immunities we're offering them. Civil rights are not natural rights. I say, abolish the Civil Rights Act. Are we now going to violate people? This is the bull we're adopting, as if the Civil Rights Act did anything for anybody. All these things, if they do anything, is to limit government. It's not supposed to. The government has no power to unify us or whatever. Most of the time, it keeps people agitated so that we continue to focus on ourselves and not on what they're doing to violate us. So this is profound. Once again, this is these citizens subject to the jurisdiction thereof, and this is persons within its jurisdictions. When I do work keeping people out of federal jurisdiction, we use these terms, okay? So here is one of the clients we had. The State Department, this is June 30th of 2007. Notice it says, it appears from the facts of your birth and documents submitted that you are a United States citizen and entitled to United States passports. In according to the what? 14th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, all persons born and naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. If the State Department is defining U.S. citizens by the 14th Amendment, federal citizens, then of course the IRS is defining it the same way. And when you understand that these are not citizens that have rights, they have privileges and immunities, this makes sense that that privilege of being a federal citizen is taxed and regulated like any corporation. And they are, and it does. And I can show you clearly this federal citizen. Look, this is a federal court case. It says, this is before the 14th Amendment. For it is certain in the sense in which the word citizen is used in the federal Constitution, citizens of each state and citizens of the United States are convertible terms. They mean the same thing. For citizens of each state are entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states. And citizens of the United States are, of course, citizens of all the United States. That's the Maine Hathaway case. After the 14th Amendment, it's quite clear then that there's a citizenship of the United States and a citizenship of the state, which are distinct from each other, which depend upon different circumstances, characteristics or circumstances in the individual. And here's another case. In our political system of a government of the United States and a government of each of the several states, each one of these governments is distinct from the others, and each has citizens of its own. Then here's one. A person who's a citizen of the United States, that's a federal citizen, is necessarily a citizen of the particular state in which he resides, but a person may be a citizen of a particular state, like me, and not a citizen of the United States. To hold otherwise would be to deny to the state the highest exercise of its sovereignty, the right to declare who are its citizens. A person may be a citizen of the United States, a federal citizen, and yet not be identified or identifiable as a citizen of a particular state. Who would that be? That would be a citizen of Puerto Rico or any other federal territory, or as a U.S. person. You know, I don't make this stuff up. This is the way it really is. There are two classes of citizens. Which one do you want to be? Here's definitions for the United States in the tax code. This is under section 7701. United States. The term United States, when used in a geographical sense, includes only the states and the District of Columbia. That's not the states, what you're thinking. State. The term state shall be construed to include, this word should be includes only like this, includes only the District of Columbia, that's D.C., where such construction is necessary to carry out the provision of the title. Trade or business. The term trade or business includes the performance of the functions of public office. This is in D.C. That's their citizens. This is their term. consistently, in my class, I go a lot more into this than here. They define the term United States by the District of Columbia. So when your state asks you, are you a United States citizen, you say, which definition you're referring to? You may not qualify for a driver's license, which means when someone stops you, say, I don't qualify for a driver's license. You may be in a foreign country and driving a car and not qualify for a driver's license, and you're still driving a car, which people do all over the world. Foreigners come in America and don't qualify for a driver's license, and they drive. My wife has a Dutch driver's license, and she has been pulled over. She doesn't participate. The idea is that it depends on these terms. So I just didn't want to be a federal citizen, so I always made sure I stayed out of that. Here's another section, same thing. The term state, United States, and citizen. State includes the District of Columbia, Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands. See, this is federal territory. That's what, when there are federal states. If they don't tell you that state, you think this means the 50 states of the Union. It does not. When I wrote to the State Department, and we used to edit the application and change the terms so they'd be true under penalty of perjury. Then the State Department wrote to me and said, you can't do that. You can't write of America after United States because it doesn't mean the same thing. You can't capitalize certain letters because it doesn't mean the same thing. So these, you see these definitions are the same. Well, here's the 1040, right? Filing requirements. See at the top of the page? Right here. These rules apply to all U.S. citizens regardless of where they live and resident aliens. That's who's required to filing income taxes. Federal citizens, 14th Amendment citizens. I'm born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Okay? My citizenship predates the 14th Amendment. I've never been a federal citizen. I did all this stuff too. But they're not telling you. If you look up the term U.S. in the tax code, it says the District of Columbia. It's consistent that way. These federal citizens, this is a privilege. And there's a lot more information. Even this, talking about a non-resident alien, I'm moving quick here, but right in the middle here, you know, talking about these rules, the tax rules apply. Non-resident aliens, these rules apply if you were a non-resident alien. Now, what's that mean? If you're not residing in D.C. or in a territory, then you're non-resident. Simple as that. If you don't reside in California, you're non-resident with California. That's all it means. You either reside or you don't, okay? And then there's the alien. If you're not a citizen of something, you're going to be an alien. That's all it is. Those terms are juxtaposed to each other. These rules apply if you were a non-resident alien or dual status alien, and both of the following apply. You were married to a U.S. citizen at the end, or a resident alien at the end of this year, and you elected to be taxed. You chose to be taxed as a resident alien. How's that? So we tell them we don't elect to be taxed as a resident alien. I mean, this is not rocket science, you know, and so we communicate these things, you know, so it's been great. Anyway, I won't go into all that. I have more, but I just wanted to open up for any questions specifically about, let me go back here to, I know I just want to show you down here. So the idea of this matrix is that federal citizens, by the nature of their citizenship, have a tax liability. This is privileges and immunities. So whether they reside in a federal territory or not, you know, they would have a tax liability because of their citizenship, okay? Now, if an alien, a foreigner, comes in and they're living in or residing in D.C., you know, Guam, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, in a federal territory, they would also have a tax liability. The problem is foreigners come in this country and the federal government funnels them all in and gets them all to agree that they're in the United States without defining those terms. Even on all the documents, I've read them. They say, you're in the United States. They're not saying what the United States is, and they're not giving it to them. This is free money for them. But the idea is that if you're an alien, meaning not a federal citizen, alien, and you don't reside in the federal zone, there's no obligation. This is the tax code is this way. It's not difficult. You don't have to get into all these other things. This is about citizenship. So we start this process by changing their status with the passport process, and it's been excellent. And sometimes we deal with the IRS, and the truth is the IRS doesn't want to discuss any of this. So, and then there's a lot more to this. And like I said, we spent a day online with a class like this. But I wanted to open up for some Q&A on the subject matter. So anybody who wants one of these, anybody sitting on the chocolate, you can take one of these. New Hampshire's my country. That's what it is. Okay, you can snag one before you leave. Yeah, a question?
So I noticed at one point that the spelling or the term United States became capitalized both the United and States, and prior to the Declaration of Independence, it was United wasn't capitalized. Is that because that was before the enactment of the federal government?
Well, ask why politicians do what they do. I don't believe that anything's by accident. But here's the thing. The United States of America was a phrase. And usually it was these United States of America, not the United States. Because the would be a particular article pointing to one object, okay? So, these United States are talking about the states. They were united in a huge way. That was a part of some of the coming out of Great Britain was the colonies were now united. Why were they united? You got to read the history. They had to borrow money from France and Spain. They didn't want to lend it to these little bitty states. Oh, if Europe wants to borrow our money, well then yes, we will lend money to Europe, but the individual states, not so good. So that's what happened. That's the reality of it. So yes, and so these United States, they would be the small u, because the states just was a modifier for the condition of them. Why they would call the federal government the United States as a proper noun is beyond me, unless it was designed for confusion, which it has been. I'm telling you, the confusion's there. I talk to reps, they don't even know this stuff, that there's two citizens. When I found this out, I went, this is dreadful. I just knew in my head it was that I'm not a federal citizen. There's nothing the federal government can give you except for a headache, okay? They don't give and bring anything to the table. Nothing do they bring to the table. It's all taken from the states, given, because the states are complicit. The reason the federal government is as bad as it is directly on the states of the union, not the federal government. They got away with whatever. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. Find out what the people will submit to, and you'll find the exact amount of injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them, and these will continue until they're resisted with either words or blows or with both. That's the reality of it, and these states are that way. And I believe that our best resistance of the federal government is going to be by way of the states, not you and me. There's no way. There's no way. Technologically, there's no way. The states got to ratchet back the feds, pushing them out of their jurisdictions. But as long as we have whores in the legislature, as long as they can't imagine funding something outside of the money the feds give us, the free money that the children of our future will be paying, or else here's what we'll say to our neighbors: screw you and all the money that you've bought up from us. That's what's going to really happen. You think that's going to be good for our international relationships? Absolutely not. And you know who's responsible? Dead people. But you got to scrap the bankers. You got to pull out of federal jurisdiction. And so that's it. Okay, great. And you got another question, sure.
So if you're not a U.S. federal citizen, can you still travel to other countries? Like, can you go to Europe if you have a passport?
Oh yeah, the State Department will issue a passport. See,
the State Department of New Hampshire will?
No, it would be wonderful if our countries were as nice as Europe, that their states issue passports. Our states should issue passports as well. Yes, we get passports. The federal government issues a passport, okay? But what you say under penalty of perjury is what's true. The DS-11 is for federal citizens. We have to have an explanatory statement that tells the truth because it's under penalty of perjury, different oath, all those things. We bring the truth out in that, and then we get those certified from the State Department in a FOIA request so that you can have certified copies of your application, because there's non-existent on your own. You can't get copies unless you do a FOIA. So, but we do that as a service. But yes, we travel and all that. I would like the states to issue passports. That'd be great.
Understand that Ed and Elaine Brown prosecuted them the evidence of their passport application.
I was there. That's right. And I said, wow, I'm glad my passport's intact. So if the IRS will prosecute Ed and Elaine Brown with passport evidence, then that's good evidence for me too, because I can talk about this all day long. You'll never get charged willful failure to file if you're doing this stuff with the State Department. It's just all out in the open. No one's going to say it's a whim or, this is rock solid.
But they get the grounds they didn't file or anything before they.
Well, yeah, I talked to Elaine, they just stopped, they didn't communicate, So Elaine was she had a corporation, it was a dental practice, and she just stopped doing it. And so she was in violation all over the place. They just think just stopping was the answer. No, they were well established as federal citizens, even though they didn't want to be. And I assert that many of us never have been federal citizens. We've just been practicing it because there's so much fraud associated. What time we have? That was more than 2 minutes. Are we at 6 o'clock? Go. Any other questions? And listen, I'll be in the pub where most freedom work is done, But anyway, I'd be glad to hook up with anybody afterwards, and I'll give you my card. We can talk on the phone. We can talk about your specifics or whatever you need. So anyway, we can take our conversation outside if you like. All right? Thank you.